Hey, filmmakers, welcome back to another late night live stream. It's been almost a year since I've done one of these, so I wanted to hop back on and chat with you guys. So, if you saw the title, we're going to be talking about what is happening with filmmaking. Where's the world of videography and filmmaking going? How are things changing? And what things are staying the same? So, if these things are interesting to you, stick around for the stream and please leave your comments and questions and opinions in the comments, and we will chat about it live. I would love to hear from you guys. It's been a while, so it'll be great to talk about it. We can talk about camera gear, whatever you want. And leave a comment below right now as well if you're watching this live or the restream. Where are you from? I'd love to know where everyone is from that is watching, because I know we got a worldwide audience. It's fun to see filmmakers from all over. So the reason I'm talking about this today is because I just got back from NAB last week. And if you're not familiar with NAB, it's basically the largest video broadcast event that happens every year in Vegas. It also happens in New York. But yeah, so it's really fun to see all the new technology, all the equipment, and a bunch of the filmmakers and people in the industry. You know, you guys probably watch a lot of the different people on YouTube that do this kind of stuff, and it's fun to see them in real life and chat with some of them. So let's start off with some interesting trends that I've been seeing going on. And sorry, I'm looking over here because I'm trying to check the comment section, make sure I'm not missing anything. And if Knox Tucker, if you're still watching, what's up? Thanks for joining. So yeah, let's talk about some different things that I've been noticing with technology. So this is not going to be big news or anything, I think, to anyone, but virtual production is definitely the absolute hot topic of the industry, and it still is in 2023. And I think the first time that we really saw it was on The Mandalorian years ago, and I saw a lot of different virtual production setups at NEB in the years past, and they're still happening, and they're still really popular. So I don't think that that's going anywhere. And you know, for filmmakers like us, though, virtual production can be really difficult and challenging to do because it requires a huge LED wall usually, or LED floors or ceilings, things that are really out of reach for most filmmakers. And then you need trackers and sensors that go on the camera. So many different companies that make them, like Vive Mars, and just a lot of options out there, but it's expensive. And so that's something I noticed at NAB, was that there were just a ton of different setups, all different kinds of LED walls, like short, small ones, some that were just like 90-degree angles, some that were curved, flat, some with floors, just a lot of different options. And so that doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. I think it's going to continue to get more popular, and the price will come down on some of that, but usually you're probably going to be renting out a studio space if you're doing that sort of filmmaking. Now, something that is going to make this sort of virtual production filmmaking 10 times cheaper is actually an app called Skyglass. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this before. I'll try and show the camera here. Let's see. There it is. So there's the Skyglass app, trying to point to it there. And this is actually an app that I developed with my co-founder. We've been working on for about a year now, and I haven't actually talked about it on this channel yet. You may have seen it on some of my other social channels like Instagram or TikTok. But it is the best way and the cheapest way to do virtual production, all from an iPhone. So I don't have this set up perfectly right now, but you can kind of see that this has me cut out, and I'll just show you. So it's kind of hard to see, but basically it's cutting me out in real time and putting me inside of an Unreal Engine environment. So let me see. I was going to actually like link this in with my switcher so you could see the environment, but I'll try and spin it around here, and you can see this is a full 3D environment from Unreal Engine. And this has never been possible before, to do virtual production all from an iPhone. So this is really amazing because you could download this on any iOS device, iPad, iPhone, whatever it is, and start doing virtual production and filming videos. I know usually on this channel I'm talking about, you know, cinema cameras. I'm shooting this on the Sony FX3. The FX6 is back there on the back shelf. And that's what I talk about typically on this channel, but virtual production is just getting so popular, and I think a lot of us want to try it out. but it's so expensive. There's just so many barriers to being able to do it with needing the sensors and trackers and LED walls that it's really difficult. So look up the Skyglass app. I'll put it actually in the description here so you guys can check it out. And it's definitely a really, really simplistic and easy way to do virtual production literally from your phone. So we were at NAB and we had a booth there and we were showing it off. And it was just so interesting to see so many people doing virtual production, but with these huge multi-million-dollar sets and using multi-million-dollar equipment. But this is just the absolute most affordable way, especially if you already have an iPhone or iPad. There we go. I just linked it in the description. So yeah, go check it out. And Wilfredo Garcia, what's up? How you doing? From South Carolina. It's late over there right now. It's like 10:30. So thanks for hanging out. Jan, what's up? Says Skyglass is cutting edge. Thank you for the support. Appreciate that. So yeah, guys, go check that out. I'm going to do a full video on it later. You guys can see more about that. But definitely the best way to do virtual production right now, the cheapest. So besides that, really trending and being super popular at NAB right now and just in the industry. I should specify that it uses a green screen or a blue screen. So you do all the virtual production with your phone, typically with a green screen or blue screen behind you. What I showed you earlier there just for a second didn't require a green screen, and it's just doing AI background removal. So it kind of cuts you out and puts you in the scene. It's not as good as Chroma Key, but it's still pretty good. So yeah, go check that out. Download the app. Tell me what you think of the app we made. All right, so moving on, let's talk about another thing that's kind of in that field, and that's, of course, lighting and RGB lighting. So I don't think this is going anywhere. It was funny to walk the show floor and just see RGB lights absolutely everywhere. And I remember just a few years ago going in 2019, and RGB lights were just starting to take off and get more popular, and it wasn't very common to see a lot of colored RGB lights, but now they're pretty much in everything. Everyone has some offering of RGB colored lights. And I do love to see that because it means the prices are coming down and down for us. So it's a lot more affordable to get into RGB lights. Whereas I remember when it was expensive to just buy a bicolor light, to get something that could go from 3200 to 5600 Kelvin was really expensive. Like that was novelty, having a bicolor light that you'll be able to adjust the color temperature. And now you're getting that and full RGB. So I love that. I love how the prices of those kind of things are all coming down. And I'm just keeping an eye on the chat over here. If you guys have any comments on any of this or questions, please keep them coming because I'd love to hear from you guys. And maybe some of you were at NAB or just want to talk about camera tech or anything you've seen on the channel, definitely leave a comment below. And I'll try my best to answer it. So back on the RGB lighting. So besides, it just becoming really popular, now what they're doing is making them smart RGBs. So you could basically program them or animate them to change different colors, like especially in the tube lights, they'll change different colors. Like say, if you were driving down, like trying to make a car scene, well, people are using tube lights now to make the lights basically animate from one end of the tube to the other. So it's like going down. And so it looks like if you put those outside the car, that you're passing street lights. And there's a lot of other interesting animated lights like that. And I think that's going to continue to be a trend. I think I'll see that we'll see even more of that next year at NAB. More and more animated RGB lights you can really program. And a huge part of that is because we're trying to use it more for virtual production. And so that way you can match the lighting. So let's say you're standing in front of a green screen or an LED wall, but the light on you doesn't match very well. Well, now you have these RGB colored lights, and you can also program them to look like the background color lights. And so that I think is going to get easier and easier to do, where you could basically input that video stream and it's going to match the colored lighting of the scene. And I noticed that was really popular, and a lot of companies are tackling that so that you can basically light those scenes to look the same. And I don't think that's going anywhere, and it's just going to get better and easier to do. All right, so another thing that I noticed is obviously everyone going LED, and it's funny because a lot of companies that historically were never into LEDs, they were all, traditional tungsten and hot lamps. That's what a lot of us started out using, but a lot of new people in this industry have only been using LED. And a lot of these old giants in the industry are all doing LED now. And it's kind of funny because I noticed that some of their booths were a lot smaller than the other companies, say like Aperture, which just has a pretty large booth. And, you know, they're big in the LED game, but there's old companies like Mole Richardson, Kino Flow, ETC, the ETC Source 4, a bunch of these that they're all doing LED now. And some of them started a couple years ago to do LED, but most of them are very late to the game. And it's interesting to see that in the industry, kind of these big, slow behemoths, just like slowly starting to adapt and try not to die and get into LED. So that's been funny to see some of their booths, you know, now saying like, check out this cool LED technology. It's like, yeah, guys, people have been doing this for a long time now. You should have been ahead of this. You're the lighting big giants. So that's been interesting to see finally everyone converting. I don't think I saw a single hot lamp there. Like, honestly, I don't think I saw any tungsten lights. There were some huge LEDs and massive soft boxes, but no tungsten lights. I did talk to a couple rental guys, and one of them does like renting out lights. And he was talking about how he just cannot move his tungsten lamps, his, you know, hot lamps that they're not renting anymore. And so now he's trying to sell them off. And we were talking about it and joking about it. I was like, I'll buy some of those old Source 4s. I love those. So, but it was interesting that he can't rent them anymore. People aren't renting them. They're only renting LEDs. They're just so much lighter. They use a lot less power on set. You need smaller gauge cables for powering everything. And so that's really great to see that in the industry. Those are getting widely adopted, even on large Hollywood sets. I know a lot of them still use big tungsten lights, but LED is getting bigger and bigger and more powerful. So really good trend to see. All right, so let's talk about AI technology. I know this is like a little bit over talked about and overdone. I feel like my entire Twitter feed is all about AI, and I'm kind of getting like AI fatigued. I don't know if you guys are feeling this way too. Leave a comment. Let me know. Are you kind of sick of hearing about AI, or is it still exciting for you? I know that I'm getting a little like just drained of seeing every single thing on planet Earth being chat GPT, this and that, or how to AI is doing this or replacing jobs. And it's kind of funny, but you know, people are kind of panicking, especially in the creative world, thinking, oh, this is going to replace our jobs. Look, now it can make videos or ads. And for me, that's not scary. I don't think it's going to replace any really big, important jobs. I think it's just going to make our jobs a lot easier. And there's a lot of tools that we can now use and just makes things a lot quicker. Like, for instance, captions. Like, they're using AI to listen to our voices and auto caption. Like this video, you could probably go turn on auto captions in real time right now on YouTube. And that's just AI doing voice recognition. And so it makes our jobs a lot easier. Now you can, auto caption videos. I know DaVinci Resolve just added that feature. Premiere's had it for a while. So it's making editing a lot easier for us. Captions are pretty much on everything, especially if you make your videos for social media. But that's not the only AI technology. You probably saw the recent release of DaVinci Resolve's update adding AI relighting. So, speaking of lighting, well, if you don't get the lighting right on set, now you can go in afterwards and basically they're using these like artificial depth maps. They're pulling a depth map from the image of your face, the body, and the background and separating them out. And then you can move a light around in 3D space and relight your subject. And it's pretty cool. I've seen a couple example videos and people playing with it at the show. I haven't actually tested it out yet. I should update my Resolve and play with it. I want to see how good it is. But I think that's pretty cool because sometimes, you might have too much shadow on the side of your face. You want to quickly relight that without just like bumping up your exposure or something, but doing it a little bit more smart. That's really cool. So that's another use of AI that I think is really awesome. And I think it's just going to continue to get better and better. And that was, AI relighting after the fact in post-production and editing. But really soon, I have good reason to believe that real-time AI relighting is coming because there's some stuff from Apple. They released, not a patent, but some information about some machine learning that's going on that they've been testing to do AI relighting. And I guess there's like a paper on it. And so I think that I'm not sure exactly how they're going to use it yet. Maybe it'll be for some filters or the camera or whatever to give you better lighting. But it looks like maybe we'll see in WWDC that's coming out, the developers conference in June. I think it's June 2nd. Maybe they'll launch something that's doing this AI relighting, offering it in part of an app or something, or maybe an API for developers. I know that'd be something we'd love to see in the Skyglass app. it's a challenge for us to get the subject to match the background when you're doing that virtual production. So doing real-time relighting is going to be really cool. There's a couple other people we've talked to about it, but we'll see. Anyways, I know I'm going on a long tangent about this, but let me know if this is interesting to you guys at all to talk about this AI technology for relighting and other things. So another couple cool things I saw was some AI technology now built into cameras. So the Sony, I believe it's the Sony ZV-1. I might be saying the wrong letters and numbers there, but I think it's the Sony ZV-1. I got to play with that just at the Sony booth at NAB. And that was really cool because they have some AI built into it. You probably have already seen some videos on this, but the main thing is that it does this reframing. So, and you could set up the camera on a tripod, especially if you're filming yourself like I'm doing here, and then kind of move around the room, and it crops in and then follows you around, keeps you centered. It's not anything super new. There's a couple companies already doing things like this. You've probably seen this from like DJI, doing it with gimbals that kind of reframe and keep you in the center. Like if you put your phone on the gimbal, it'll track you as you walk around. So the technology is not super new, nothing like groundbreaking there, but it's really interesting to see manufacturers like Sony integrating AI directly into the camera body. We've never seen that before. So I think it's really interesting. I think AI is going to start to do a lot of things that we just didn't think was possible before. Another thing was, I think on the Sony ZV-1, that they're doing AI with audio as well to basically record the audio and track it to make sure it's not peaking and such. I have to do a little research on that. The sales guy was just telling me briefly about that. I was like, okay, that's interesting, but I don't know exactly the ins and outs of that. But really interesting to see AI technology creeping into the cameras, and I'm curious to see how much it's going to adapt and change, so. And it's also for the focusing. I forgot to mention that. If you've seen that with the Sony ZV-1, that it's also the focusing is using AI technology to keep people in focus. And I think that's actually really useful. If that gets really good, I could see that being a great way to pair up and make our autofocus even better for those of us that need autofocus, especially for run and gun shooting when you can't, focus manually. So I'm interested to see. Maybe they'll put AI relighting directly into your camera body or something. I don't know. I'm just interested to see how far this AI technology creeps into our cameras. All right, so let's see. There's a lot to cover, I feel like, with AI. Something else that's not quite as AI-based, but Premiere Pro just released the ability to edit your videos now with text only, so text-based editing. This was in beta for a while. I think for a couple months they had a beta version of this, but if you use Premiere Pro, you know that you can auto-caption your videos, and you could go in and edit them after the fact, just like edit the captions themselves. But now you can use those captions to actually edit the videos. You can highlight portions of the text that you're like, oh, that was a mess up. I know that was an outtake. Highlight it and just hit delete, which is so incredible, especially for editors like me that I'm editing a lot of interviews or long form stuff. I used to edit a lot of podcasts, and that way, so if you're editing like an hour-long podcast and you need to shorten it down, you could go in and find a lot of the junk that isn't important or outtakes, and you can go in and literally just highlight it and delete it and edit the entire video just by quickly reading through it. And that's incredible. Or if you used a script and you know what the lines are supposed to be for maybe an ad or a short film or something, you could go in and find those and just delete everything else that's in between. So that's incredible to see this kind of technology happening around us. And so I love that. I'm excited to start just editing with text only. I have been doing that, something a little bit similar to that with an app called Time Bolt. I haven't talked about it before on the channel. Maybe I'll make a whole video about it, but essentially Time Bolt is an app you can download. I use it on Mac. I think it might be available on Windows also, but basically it allows you to edit out all the dead space out of your videos. So if you do talking head, interviews, whatever it is, you just put the video into the app, and then it runs through it, all the audio waves, and wherever there's silence, or you can set basically the decibel of where it goes quiet, and it'll delete all the gaps for you. So it might take like a 30-minute interview and break it down to like 20 minutes or 15 minutes for you. And then you can import that directly into your editor, whether it's Final Cut Pro, Premiere, or DaVinci Resolve. You can edit it right in. It's cut all the gaps out. So then you can just go in and fine tune it. And so imagine if you got rid of all those gaps and then you bring it in Premiere Pro, and now you just edit and delete things. Your editing is just going to get so much quicker. So these tools, I don't think editors need to be scared. A lot of people have been scared thinking, oh, editing is, going to be done by AI now. Well, I don't think it's quite there yet. I really don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But what is happening is it's making it easier for people like me to not spend hours and hours and hours editing. It's shortening our job. These tools are making our jobs a lot easier. Let's take a look at the comments. Peter Joel, what's up? Says, Adobe's audio enhancer is great in theory, but sounds really weird in practice, at least this early version. Okay. And let me make sure we're talking about the same thing here. So maybe, Peter, you could add some clarification here, but I haven't used the audio enhancer yet. I'm just talking about the text-based editing of videos. But if they release some new tools to make your audio sound better, I haven't used that yet. I have seen some stuff where they're doing like really good background removal and making the audio sound better. Maybe that's what you're referring to. I haven't tested it out yet, so you have to let me know your experience there. Yeah, he says sounds weird in practice. So it must be what you're talking about is kind of the enhancing of the person's audio when they're speaking. So I'll have to play with that, see what the results are. Yeah, and I think a lot of this AI technology is so new that we're just seeing what it can do and how good it is. And some of it is going to be so new that it's not going to be the best, but it's fun to see that progression, especially for people like us that are doing a lot of editing. It's nice to see new, smarter tools. All right. Let's see. Trying to think of the other great AI technology that has been happening. If you could think of anything you want to chat about, leave it in the comments. I've seen a lot of like ads and videos coming out saying that like you can create full ads with AI now. Just punch in like type in some of the text you want to see and maybe some of like the photos or videos, like samples that you might use. And then they're creating these little social media ads. But as you know, they're just not going to be exactly what you want, but it could be a good starting place to go in and customize them. So I think those will be interesting tools to explore and see how good they really get. All right. So let's see, let's talk about vertical video. So it's just something that I have a love-hate relationship with. I think from the inception of smartphones, I remember everyone was trying to get everyone to film horizontally. And, you know, there was like the vertical video syndrome that we would make fun of everyone filming vertically. And we're like, turn your phone sideways, turn your phone sideways. And we got a lot of people to do it and boomers and everyone was filming sideways. But then I really think it was TikTok that came along and just made everything go vertical. You know, now absolutely everything, all your stories and reels and shorts and everything is a vertical video now, unless it's like, you know, a long form YouTube video or a movie or TV show or something. But everything's gone vertical and I've had a total love-hate relationship with it. But now I think I've really adopted it. I see the place for it, especially on social media. You've got to do vertical video, you know, to stay relevant on YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels and TikTok. If you guys do that kind of stuff, I'm sure you do. Got to do vertical video because horizontal video just doesn't look very good on these phones. But that aside, you know, we're used to seeing the vertical video on our smartphones, but now manufacturers are starting to make it so our hardware, the actual cameras, support vertical video. And that's been really interesting. So you guys probably saw the most recent update from Blackmagic, adding the firmware update so that now when you turn the camera, all the UI switches into a vertical mode. So it's really easy to read, change all your settings, and frame everything up with the frame guides and everything that are working in that vertical aspect ratio. So I thought that was really interesting. I think it's the first camera to do it, but let me know, you know, in the comments, is there any other camera out right now that switches to a vertical view, all the UI when you go start filming vertical? I would love to know. I know a lot of the external monitors are doing that. Like I think it's my Small HD Cine 5 that when you switch into a vertical mode, that the UI and everything switch to vertical, which is really nice. But it's really interesting to see it actually built into the hardware of a camera, especially Blackmagic. They're really good at doing firmware updates and like quickly changing the camera. Whereas like some cameras like Canon, there's just this old behemoth that's so slow to make changes, and like maybe they'll add a vertical video option in like a decade. And they're like, look at this cool new thing. And it's like Blackmagic and other companies have been doing it for a decade. So I don't know, we'll see. But cool to see that. I think it's good because a lot of us are, you know, getting paid to shoot vertical videos for companies and doing ads or, you know, making local promos for companies and things. I know I do a lot of stuff like that, and a lot of times I have to shoot vertical. I just did a full vertical video shoot a few weeks ago for a remodeling, like a window remodeling company. And they wanted everything vertical. I didn't shoot a single thing horizontal, and we're editing all the ads vertically. So that could be harsh to think about and say, because I've been so anti-vertical video for so long, but it's really taking over, especially on social media and in the ad space, the online ad space. Everything's got to be a vertical video. So let me know, how much do you hate vertical video, or have you embraced it? Like I said, it's been a love-hate relationship for me doing vertical video. But I don't think it's going to die anytime soon. That's what I was going to title this video, is Vertical Video Just Won't Die. Not dead yet, so it's still around. I think it's going to last for a really long time, especially when companies start to change their hardware for it. I just really hope they don't start making any vertical sensors. You can just turn the camera. Please don't make a vertical sensor. It'd be a nightmare. Yeah, so Darren Orange saying vertical has been a lot easier forever. So yeah, they've been, there's a lot of changes and updates. A lot of software has been making it easier to edit vertical video. It has been funny. I think DaVinci Resolve just added an option to do vertical video like inside the editor, and they're like, look at this great new feature. Now you can, change your project settings to be vertical. And I was like, yeah, we've been able to do vertical video in Final Cut and Premiere for a long time. So it's kind of funny. They're up to date on AI, but they're just now saying like, look, we support vertical video. So it's been funny to see kind of everyone playing catch up in their own ways. Yeah, very interesting stuff. So yeah, it's exciting to see the way things are adapting and changing. But yeah, if you guys have any questions or comments about anything that you've been shooting, camera tech, I know I do a lot of rig builds on this channel. I got to do some more. I want to do a camera rig reviews live with you guys. Those are a lot of fun. Have you guys send in some pictures of your rigs, and we just talk about them, and everyone kind of jumps in and asks questions about what gear you're using and how you're liking it and stuff. So let me know in the comments if you want to do another camera rig live. Leave a comment, let me know. I'll get one set up and just get you all to submit photos of your camera rigs. Those are always a lot of fun. So yeah, I enjoy doing that. Let's see, Oscar Mendoza, what's up? He says, what's a good lens for vertical? I'm thinking 16 to 35 or even a 24 millimeter. Yeah, let's see. So the vertical video that I just shot like 2 weeks ago for a company was all on the Sony 16 to 35. There was a great lens for it. So yes, I definitely think that's a good option. The nice thing about obviously shooting vertical is that, if you go wide angle, you're going to be able to kind of frame things up a lot easier than if you're like on a 50 millimeter and you're going vertical. You might have to step back really far to get everything in the shot. So being able to go really wide angle is definitely helpful. Another thing I'd say, that if your client needs a normal 16:9 aspect ratio and vertical video, then definitely shooting wide is going to be great, like a 16 millimeter, 20 or 24 millimeter. Shoot really wide, and this is what I do when they need both. I just shoot a little bit wider than I normally would. And then I put frame guides on my monitor. So I put a vertical 9:16 frame guides on, and I just get everything that's important inside of those frame guides. Everything outside of those frame guides, I don't care about that much, because mostly we're just going to be using those vertical videos, but there might be a platform like YouTube that they're going to put it onto, and they need a normal 16:9, but everything else is going to be vertical. So I just put all the important stuff inside of the vertical guidelines, and the rest is like a bonus kind of extra. So that's my pro tip, is just, if you have to deliver both, shoot a little bit wider and use frame guides for 9:16 vertical. And that's worked out pretty well. Most of the new monitors you get, there's a lot of different cheap ones, or you get small HD or Atomos monitors. Those are my favorite, but there are a ton of really affordable ones that are really cheap. I've done reviews on the channel from like Feel World and such that give you that vertical video aspect ratio. So yeah, I think if you're going to shoot for both, shoot wider. You could still shoot, I've shot a lot of stuff on a 35 and a 50 millimeter in full vertical, but that was because I wasn't shooting for horizontal as well. And that way you just frame it how you want, and you're probably going to have to step back depending on if like you need full body or whatever it is. Yeah, there's a lot of different lenses. You could use really any lens you want for vertical, but going wide angle can be helpful. So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, I think a 16 to 35 is nice if you can do a wide angle zoom. So you can get a little bit of compression going to 35. If you just shoot on a 24 millimeter, you don't get as much variable option there. All right, and Darren Orange is saying just shoot open gate on a Z cam and crop and post. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that. What aspect ratio does the Z cam shoot in open gate? Is it a 4x5? I think that probably, or is it a 3x5? I'm not positive. Let me know. But that would be really interesting. I've been thinking about something. I've been thinking about this, that it would be awesome if manufacturers would just make just a straight up square sensor, because then you're going to lose a little bit of data depending on what you're doing. But if it's square, you're going to always have a good vertical strip with just a little bit cut off, cropped off on the left and right. Or if you're doing 16:9, you're going to have a little bit cropped off the top and the bottom if it's a square sensor. And then if you're doing, obviously a square video, you get the full frame. And I kind of like the idea of that. I think that'd be really cool if you just get a perfect 1x1 sensor. I'd be really interested to see some videos like that. I saw someone, I'm trying to remember who it was, but they did they took an anamorphic lens. I can't remember who it was. It might have been anamorphic on a budget. I saw him at NAB, just walked by. And I think he took an anamorphic lens and turned it sideways so that instead of the stretch going horizontally across the screen, now it was going vertically. And that made his image almost perfectly square. It wasn't quite square, but I thought that was really cool because he posted the video in like almost a square aspect ratio. But then it was interesting because you could crop it either way, vertical or horizontal, but just get a lot of view. So that was kind of interesting to see a anamorphic sideways. And it was just a really interesting way of doing it. So I'd love to see something like that. Let's see. Yeah, so Darren Orange is saying you should talk more about how important 32-bit is for audio. So yeah, 32-bit audio basically is making it more possible. And then there's like 32-bit and 32-bit float. I'm not an audiophile, so someone else is probably going to be more apt to talk about the details of this, but basically I know it's just keeping your audio from clipping. It's like the raw of audio. So you can shoot raw video and you get more information. So you have more highlights and dynamic range and colors. And it's similar with 32-bit audio. You're getting more audio information. So if you're really into that and you know how to just tweak your audio and make it sound beautiful, or you want to avoid a lot of peaking, then you're going to want to record in 32-bit audio. But again, I don't think I'm the absolute professional in the audio world. I'd love to hear a little bit more from someone else that knows more in depth on that. That's my high level on 32-bit audio. All right, let's see. Darren Orange saying that he worked with a guy back in the day who did exactly that with a Red 1. Oh, okay. So talking about the anamorphic lens, rotating it. And it gave that crazy image back then. It looked like IMAX. Yeah, so the big like 70 millimeter IMAX sensors that are just huge and kind of square shaped. Yeah, I think that's really cool. I got to play with it. I don't know how to mount. I have a few anamorphic lenses that I've done reviews on for Sue Ray and Great Joy. You guys can check those out. Just posted a couple of them, but I don't know how to turn the anamorphic lens sideways because mine are all Sony E-mount and Canon EF mount, but I know with the PL mount, I believe you can mount them sideways. So maybe if you have a PL mount, you can test that and kind of get that like large format look. That'd be really interesting. That's cool. All right, so let's see. Player Found Productions, what's up? Thanks for stopping in. He says, what is one piece of advice you'd give a first-year video production guy trying to start his own business? Thanks. That's a really good It's a really good question and really hard to answer because there's just so many things. It's hard to narrow it down to one. But what I would say is if you're just getting started out, you need to determine what it is that you want to do. So maybe you can give me some more clarification. But like, are you wanting to start your own production company and have a team, like hire a couple guys to work with? Or are you wanting to freelance and just be a solo creator and go out and shoot things on your own? Or are you trying to get into like the filmmaking Hollywood side? Because that's a different route too. Yeah, so I think I'll cover that one first. If you're trying to get into that, you're going to be on sets. Just get onto any set you can as the lowest guy on the totem pole as a PA, doing errands, getting snacks, waters, whatever it is, helping out on set. And then, slowly getting better and better jobs, whether it's, doing some grip or gaff whatever it is. And eventually, if you want to do DP, a director of photography, cinematographer or director, you're going to work up to that, being an assistant cameraman. There's a lot of different roles you could do on set. But so I would say if you want to go the Hollywood route, just go do local productions. There's a lot of like Facebook groups that you can find that will do local productions, and go be a PA on set and start working your way up just in the local side. But if you want to do freelance video, that's how I kind of started out. I was just doing it for fun, and then I started getting paid jobs because people were like, hey, you can do video. Could you make a video for my business? I would say one of the biggest pieces of advice would be don't underprice yourself right off the bat. You're worth a lot more probably than you think. Unfortunately, a lot of like really new videographers, and I was this way myself, will come in at first and be like, hey, I'll do that job for you for a couple $100. And a lot of times they'll get the job because the client's like, awesome, that's cheap. But it's going to be a lot harder to raise your prices on them later if you want to keep them as a long-term client, because they're like, hey, I know I did this for like $300 before, but now I'm charging $1,500 for the same thing. And I'm like, whoa, what happened? So I would say start your prices a lot higher than you originally felt comfortable with. That can feel uncomfortable if you don't have a huge reel. So you might need to do a little bit of work for free or for pretty cheap, but don't do it for very long. I'd say maybe spend a few months doing that so you have enough work to show on your website or a YouTube channel or something, or Vimeo. Load up a couple jobs that you've done for really cheap, but then do not ever do any again for that cheap. Charge anyone else that you come in contact with a much more reasonable rate. And you can look up what's, kind of the average for your area or your section of the industry, depending on what you're doing. But that's what I would recommend, is charge more sooner. And it's really valuable. What we offer as videographers is really valuable to businesses. So you could charge a lot. And if they say no, that's okay. You can move on and find another client that's willing to pay it. So I just would say, don't undersell yourself and do things for really, really cheap, because it's really not going to be worth it. All right. Unless you're just building your reel to start with. So that's what I would say. Let's see. Christian Lockhart saying, could you do more behind the scenes of your shoots? Yeah. So I just did a video shoot with the anamorphic, the Suray anamorphic 35 millimeter. And I put some behind the scenes footage in there. So if you haven't watched that yet, it's the last video I posted on the channel. Go check that out. And I tried to put as much behind the scenes footage in there as I could. But yeah, I could always improve that. I think the hard part is sometimes finding help and getting people to come film behind the scenes. Sometimes it's literally just me and whoever I'm filming. It's just the two of us running around getting shots, depending on what it is. Sometimes literally some of the ads I do is like that. It's just me and another person, depending on the size of the production, or if it's for YouTube, sometimes it's just two of us. So try to get behind the scenes, but yeah, I need to get more. But if there's something specifically you're looking for that you want to talk about and you want to like kind of learn from, let me know, and I can try and talk about that more and make your video about it and do some more behind the scenes shots. Sorry. All this talking is making me really thirsty. Yeah, but I have a ton of old videos too with behind the scenes in them. So if there's something you're looking for, let me know. All right, let's see. Okay, Player Found Production saying freelancer. Yeah, so I think I covered most of your questions then. I would say for freelance, charge more than you originally thought you were worth. And if you can, get away from hourly. I would say that's another thing to avoid. A lot of clients will be like, hey, this is just like a 2-hour job. How much is that going to cost? Red flag, run away as fast as you can, because anyone that says like, hey, this is just I just need you for 2 hours. How much is that? They're not valuing your worth and the work, because really, sure, you show up to the job and you shoot for 2 hours and that's it. But they don't understand how much pre-production went into that. You had to spend a whole day, possibly, or half a day prepping all your camera gear, making sure everything's charged, all your cards are cleared, formatted, all your camera equipment is clean and together, organized, then packed in your car, your truck. So you got to get paid for that half day or sometimes full day you spent preparing for the shoot. Then you go do that shoot that's only 2 hours. Well, maybe you spent an hour more driving. You need to charge for that. And then you're going to go home, and you're going to drop your cards. You're going to drop and back up all your footage. And that's going to take you maybe an hour, maybe a few hours, depending on how much footage it is. And you have to save it on a hard drive. So you might be throwing it on something like this little Samsung, SSD or whatever it is, and you have to pay for this. This actually has a hard cost. And once it gets filled up by one client's footage, you're going to have to buy another one for the other client's footage. So I always put that into my bids. I'll say, hey, long-term storage, unless you don't want it, I'll say long-term storage, and I'll just put an estimate of how much footage I think it's going to take, but usually I say at least 1 terabyte, and I'll just look up how much a 1 terabyte drive is. Even if I have space on my drive, it doesn't matter. I'm going to charge them for that space, because trust me, they will come back asking for that footage years from now. 5 years from now, they'll say, hey, they'll shoot you an email or a text out of the blue. Hey, do you still have that footage from that ad we shot, or from, if you do weddings, from our wedding? And you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where that is, where drive that is. And if you made an oopsie, you deleted it. And then you're like, I don't have that anymore. And they'll be like, what? I'm like, sorry, should have told me. So I always charge for it. Charge for a hard drive, even if you don't buy one, or buy one specifically for it and label it and keep that. So I guess I'm going kind of on a long rant about this, but that's something I would do, as well as, so getting onto this 2-hour shoot idea of freelancing, you should be charging for after the shoot as well, not just post-production, but dropping the cards, backing everything up, and then cleanup, getting all the gear out of your truck, getting everything back on the chargers, put away. Sometimes there's a full day of work or half day of work to just decompress from your shoot. So when companies say, oh, this is 2 hours of work, what do you charge? Is it like $50 an hour, $70 an hour, whatever it is? No, just bid per the project. So, okay, you want 2 ads, 1 vertical and 1 horizontal. Okay, here's how much that's going to cost total. Maybe it's $1,000. I don't know, depending on how much work it is, so maybe that's going to be $1,000. Like, oh, it's only 2 hours. Then you can go, bid it as a project as a whole, but then you could go and break it down and say, okay, well, I spent a half day doing this, and then the shoot and travel, and then a half day afterwards breaking down. And then I'm actually going to spend 2 days editing this or whatever. So it's usually worth a lot more than you think. So don't get caught up spending, like telling them, oh, I only charge $75 an hour to shoot. Well, then if you do a 2-hour shoot, that's only going to be $150. And then you're like, okay, well, editing was a couple hours. And so the whole project might only be worth a few $100, where it really should be worth thousands of dollars, because it's way more work and it's valuable to them. I could talk about this freelance stuff for a while. Maybe I should do a whole video on it. Sorry if this is boring. I know it's boring to some people to talk about the business side as creators. Okay. Christian Lockhart saying, why did you start doing film? And so I'll just address that really quickly. Basically, I did a photo shoot with someone, it goes back a lot further than this. Maybe I should link. I have a video on like how I got into video production. I'll just have to drop it in the channel link here. You guys will be able to find it, but how I got started. And like, I just always been making videos as a kid for fun, and had really cheap cameras, and I used my dad's cam, the classic dad cam zoom in. It was like a Sony handheld zoom in with a tape and everything. And that was just for fun. But for reals, back in 2013, which I can't believe was a decade ago, blows my mind, I did a video shoot with a friend. They needed just like a model to stand in. I was not a model, but just someone to photograph. And we did that, and I watched her do it, and I was like, you know what? I could shoot photos. That looks pretty easy. Just point and shoot. Little did I know, right? But I was like, I could do that. So I decided to buy a camera. I bought one from Best Buy on a Best Buy credit card, because I didn't have the money to just buy one cash. And it was the Canon Rebel T3i. That's what I started on. And that was one of the first cameras I think a lot of people started on. A lot of videographers started on the T2i or the T3i. That's what I started on. And I was doing photo, and then I realized, hey, this could take video. And I started really playing with that and loving it. And then people saw just like random videos I posted for fun, and were like, hey, can you shoot my wedding? Or can you shoot this thing for my business? And then I was like, whoa, I can make money doing this. This is cool. It's not just a hobby. And it's just snowballed from there. Now I've been doing it for a decade, and I feel old. So that's why I got started in it, I guess. And I just enjoy it. And Christian also saying, what's a good camera for a first timer who's getting into filming? That's a really loaded question. It depends on what kind of filming you're doing. So maybe leave a comment and clarify, but until you comment that, I will tell you some of my thoughts on it. Basically, if you're just getting started in filmmaking, obviously just buy the camera that you can afford. Like I just said, I bought the Canon Rebel T3i on a credit card, and I think it was about $600, which at the time was a lot of money for me. and I did not have the money to buy it. I paid that off, over like a year or something on their credit card. But yeah, I would buy a camera, whatever you buy, I'd buy something that can shoot in 4K. There's a lot of great cameras that are pretty affordable that shoot in 4K. And then if it's your first time with a camera, I'd probably get a crop sensor camera, APS-C instead of full frame, because one, it's going to be a lot cheaper, and two, the lenses are going to be a lot cheaper. And a lot of the money you spend is not just going to be on the camera body, but you need a lot of different lenses, or you're going to want a lot of different lenses, I guess I should say eventually. I started off with 2 lenses, a 50 millimeter and like the kit lens that came with it, an 18 to 55, I think. And, then I just bought many different lenses over the years since then, but I would probably buy a crop sensor. So it's affordable to buy lenses that you want, and it's a more affordable camera. So the exact camera body, that's really going to vary depending on your budget. But right now I'd probably say possibly the Sony a6600. I think that's the latest from that line, the Sony a6600. I used to own that, and the a6500, both great cameras, shoot in beautiful 4K, in-body image stabilization, and pretty good color science. And those were just really nice all-around cameras, and they're pretty affordable. So I'd probably go with the Sony a6000 line, maybe the new Sony ZV-1 that I was talking about earlier. But that one's actually not super affordable in its full frame, but they're trying to kind of sell it as an affordable like vlogger camera, but I'm just not seeing it because it's still $2,000. And for me, that was a lot of money starting out. So another good thing, find them used. There's a lot of people locally on Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp, eBay. You can find great used cameras that people barely use it for a hobby or whatever, and it's not super beat up, and get them for a lot cheaper. So if it's your first time, I'd probably get something used or just more affordable. Don't spring for like a $2,000-$3,000 camera or more if you're just getting started. You don't need it. Learn the basics and principles on a pretty affordable camera, and when you're ready and you've got some money back from doing freelance jobs, then maybe invest in a new one. But don't feel the pressure to buy a really expensive camera and lens right out of the gate. A lot of us get in that mindset of like, I've got to have the best camera. If I have the best camera, I'm going to get the jobs, or my stuff's going to look the best. But to be honest, some of the stuff I shot years ago on much cheaper cameras and lenses might look just as good as the stuff that I'm shooting now on cameras that cost 5 times as much, or lenses that cost 2 or 3 times as much. But it just depends on your framing, your lighting, your storytelling, on how good that is. So you can do a lot with a pretty affordable camera. All right. All right, so Fourth 1000, what's up? Welcome. Saying, anybody else hate current Blackmagic cameras as much as I do? The removal of cinema D&G and addition of B-RAW just make them look like every other camera. They lack magic now. Yeah, I mean, I can see where you're coming from with that. I have mixed feelings about it. So I never had the original Blackmagic. I've shot on it, and I've done shoots on some of the original Blackmagic pocket camera. So I don't actually have a ton of experience using D&G, but I know a lot of people liked it because it was true RAW, and you could change the white balance after the fact, and it was like a true RAW. But you can do that. You can change the white balance with B-RAW as well. But it was a little bit more RAW, I guess, than B-RAW, which is slightly more baked in. But I owned the Pocket 6K, the Blackmagic Pocket 6K, for about, I think, 2 years. And I shot on that, and I really enjoyed the camera a lot. I did actually like the image that came out of it. And it had better dynamic range than some of my other cameras, like the original Sony a7S1 that I had. So the dynamic range was way better, being 16-bit internal. So I did find that really nice. But what I can say is that, I hope Blackmagic isn't listening to this, but I think their camera bodies are kind of the worst. What I don't like is how bulky and big they are. And don't get mad at me if you're a Blackmagic owner. That's okay. Like I said, I've shot on them for 2 years. I really enjoy them for the most part, but the body is so bulky. It's hard to do handheld footage with because it's so bulky and awkward to hold. And it's very difficult to balance on a gimbal because it's just so wide. A lot of gimbals it doesn't fit on, or it's uncomfortable to rock on a gimbal because it's so heavy. So I think the body could use some work. If they could take that Blackmagic science and actually make it pocket size, like Pocket Cinema, make it about the size of a Sony Alpha camera, man, I would love that camera 10 times more if they would just shrink the body. And I think one of the main reasons is because they want that large 5-inch LED on the back, which is one thing I love. You know, you don't have to have an external monitor to see everything, but it does make the camera just huge and awkwardly shaped. So I wish they would change that. But yeah, as far as the image, I think it has some good parts to it. When I first started using it, I was really impressed, and it looked a lot different than my Sony A7S camera. It didn't have the weird green tint I was getting on my Sony cameras, and it looked a little bit more like an RE camera. And I know a lot of people seek that. So I do think the image is good. I like the software on Blackmagic cameras. It's so easy to use, all touchscreen, huge buttons. The UI is so simplistic and easy to use that no other camera manufacturer has caught up to that. Like Sony is notorious for having horrible camera menus, and they're still terrible, and there's so many levels deep, and it's hard to find things. Even if you've been using the camera for years, sometimes you can't remember where settings are. Blackmagic's UI and software is just so easy to use. So I do have some qualms with it, but for the most part, I do like Blackmagic cameras. I just wanted to go with something a little bit smaller form factor and that would work with all my Sony lenses. Yeah, so I appreciate the question there. And I've been watching them, you know, at NAB. I was hoping they were going to come out with a new camera or camera body. No new announcements for any of these lineups. I think they updated the 12K, the Ursa Mini Pro 12K or whatever it is. That's something actually that I found interesting about NAB was that there weren't a ton of advancements on the resolution side. You know, most cameras are still shooting in 4K, and not a lot of them are coming out with 8K. Obviously, Red, they've got some 8K cameras, and Blackmagic, we just mentioned, doing 12K. But I haven't seen these huge jumps where sometimes you think, okay, everyone, since it's out now, is going to start doing 6K, 8K, 12K. Well, truthfully, most of the manufacturers and the new cameras I'm seeing are still coming out with 4K. Some of them, like the Blackmagic Pocket 6K we were just talking about, is doing 6K, but and some of them are oversampling, doing a 6K image and then downsampling, you know, downscaling it to a 4K image, which is nice. But I did find that interesting. There weren't any huge launches of new cameras, you know, offering 8K or 12K. So I think that's interesting about the camera industry right now is that people aren't chasing the resolution as much as I thought they might be with new releases. They're kind of sticking around 4K, which I think is great because most everything that we're watching today is on our cell phones and it doesn't even stream in 4K. It's 1080p or 720p or worse sometimes. So it's not a huge deal. Obviously, if you're watching a movie on your TV, you know, 4K or above might be really nice, but 1080p almost always is good enough. It's just nice to have 4K in the edits so you can punch in. Let's see. Fourth 1000 saying, would you ever consider buying a used Alexa Classic? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I've seen a lot of different like YouTubers and filmmakers and stuff, you know, kind of buy some of these old Alexas and they're playing with them. And I think that's pretty cool. I think I would like playing with it and trying it out, but they're still like huge cameras. And for me, I'm the kind of like filmmaker, videographer that likes to do handheld as much as possible and sometimes gimbal work. And so those huge cameras, one, I cannot balance on a gimbal, literally impossible unless you get like a huge gimbal, like even the Movi or the Ronin 2, the R2, whatever it is, the Ronin 2, just won't support it. So that's difficult, and I can't do handheld with it because it's too big. So for me, something like an Alexa Classic is basically like a shoulder rig setup. I'll be able to do more of like, you know, shoulder rig shoots with that and be comfortable, or on a tripod or maybe like a slider, Dana Dolly sort of setup. So I think I would play with one for fun, but I don't think I would buy one just because of that. And we were just talking about resolution, but I believe they only shoot 1080p, which I do at least like having 4K. But if you're getting that RE look and colors, I guess I could probably deal with just 1080p. So yeah, I don't think I'll buy one ever, but I'd like to get my hands on one and play with one for fun. So yeah, good question. Well, let's see. Yeah, one other comment here. He says, it's strange when 4K was unattainable, we all sought out the sharpest lens. Now that we have 6K, 8K, we seek out vintage and soft lenses and diffuse everything a lot. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Things are started to look too clinical. And too sharp, too clinical with a lot of the lenses, especially because a lot of us are using photo stills lenses on our cameras, and photo stills lenses are inherently sharper than a lot of the cinema cameras or cinema lenses. And so things just like look too, not scientific, but too clinical, and you watch them back and you're like, this is like way over sharp and strange. So it is funny that everyone's trying to now put diffusion on the front, using Black Pro mist filters or, cine bloom effects and that sort of thing to just like get rid of the sharpness and diffuse it to death. I've been guilty of doing that, putting Black Pro mist on a lot of my lenses to try and smooth it out, make it look a little bit cleaner. But still, the nice thing is, though, even if it is 6K or 8K, you smooth it out and you diffuse the image, but the whole thing overall looks better, and you can crop in and reframe when you need to, which is really nice. And so I don't think it's a big deal, putting diffusion on it after the fact, even though the resolution is higher, because just the overall image can look better. But you do soften it up a little bit. But you're right. There's a lot of lenses now coming out that are like, ooh, the vintage look. I saw a ton of those at NAB. That was really interesting. I will say this. I forgot to mention anamorphic lenses, man. Wow. That was a buzzword at NAB this year, and it's been on the rise. Atlas anamorphics, I've shot with those before. I made a whole video on it on the channel, shooting on it, actually on my Blackmagic Pocket 6K, the original. And I love the anamorphic look. It's beautiful. And they did the first 2x squeeze anamorphics that were kind of affordable. They were about $8,000 a piece. Now they're $9,000 to $10,000 a piece. The price has gone up. So thanks inflation. But even still, those were really unattainable. But now companies like Sirui, Greatjoy, and just a ton of others have come out with anamorphic lenses that are so much more affordable. And I saw that at NAB this year. It's not stopping. I think anamorphic, I'm actually really happy to see, because I love the look of it. Not just the lens flares and blue streaks and stuff, but the squeeze factor, getting that true wide angle or wide aspect ratio, and then the oval bokeh. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I'm really happy to see anamorphic prices just come down and down and down and become more affordable for everyone. I remember years ago thinking, man, like, I'll be lucky to ever shoot on anamorphics. Like, that's impossible. Or you have to use some old like projection lenses and use adapters. And I just hated that. I did not want to do that. So I'm so happy to see that. But there were a lot of companies that are coming out with new ones. DZO Films is coming out with some new anamorphic lenses that look really nice. They're 2x squeeze, which is nice because a lot of these other manufacturers have been only doing 1.3x squeeze or 1.6. and some of them 1.8. So to see a true 2x squeeze is really nice. And they haven't released the price point yet, but I'm hoping it's much more affordable than that $8,000, $9,000 range of the Atlas anamorphics. So yeah, that's not stopping. And I'm happy to see that. If you like anamorphics, there's a lot of great options. I saw a ton at NAB, a lot of companies doing anamorphics that I'd never heard of, or they just released a few new lenses. And that was fun to see, like, hey, we have a new line of anamorphics. So everyone's jumping in the game. That's really interesting to see. So yeah, that was another main big thing happening with filmmaking that I did not write down and I wanted to cover in this video. That's a trend I think is going to continue to happen with filmmaking. So yeah, I think we've covered pretty much everything that I wanted to cover. We're about to hit an hour. So thank you so much for everyone that joined the live stream, left comments and questions. And if you're watching the replay, definitely leave some comments and I'll come down and respond to them. And hit like, subscribe. If somehow you're watching this and you're not subscribed, that's super weird. You should subscribe. So yeah, thank you guys all so much for joining the live stream. And I will catch you guys in the next video. And you guys have a good rest of your night, and I'll see you guys later.